What are you guys thinking about for housing?
I was hoping to get homestay.
Oh, okay.
Same.
But
Homestay.
Nice.
Okay. I did the dorms, but I had a lot of friends who did homestay.
I might end up in the dorms.
Yeah, I think it totally depends on your personality and what you're looking to get out of the experience. For me, I wanted a lot more independence when I was there, and like wanting to be able to make my own meals and kind of come and go as I please. Except that the dorms definitely still have their rules and their requirements. But I had friends who did homestay that absolutely loved it. Kind of had that close connection, because I also had family friends and other friends who were in Japan, so I still was able to connect with Nihonjin instead of some people, if you don't have people that you already know there. Yeah, exactly. Then the homestay is so great for that.
I guess the first time that I went, I didn't do a terrible amount of preparatory work, to be perfectly honest. But I will say that on the plane ride over, you have like 10 hours of free time. You're sitting there and you've got all that free time, so I brought like kanji flashcards and just different like grammar charts, and I just was studying that for the whole 10 hours on the plane. And so by the time I got off the plane, it was all floating around in my head and I was ready to go.
Yeah, I think, I did the my undergrad at Western in history and then a minor in Japanese. So my minor was definitely a good preparation for KCP. But I have to say that it was great for kanji and for reading and writing. I thought that program really prepared me for KCP. But my oral language skills were not quite there, which was part of why I wanted to go to Japan and actually live there and do KCP, because I wanted to kind of be a little more well-rounded about it. So my suggestion would be definitely brush up on all your reading and writing, because that is huge and will help you navigate where you're going, whether it's at school or just around the city. But if you can, find some friends to talk to or chat online or whatever you can to kind of get your oral speaking ready, so that when you arrive and you have to ask somebody where the 7-Eleven is, that you can do it, because that's crucial.
Let's see, before I went, I would say I brushed up on my kanji quite a bit and also brushed up on my grammar. And that really helped me with the placement test. But the thing I think I was practicing most was just kind of conversational speak, so it wasn't such a shock to me when I went over there and all of a sudden everything's Japanese, your teacher's speaking to you in Japanese, and it might be overwhelming at first, but everyone gets used to it eventually. It just helps if you kind of have a smooth transition into that.
I would definitely say, going back this time, since we're going back for the second time, that I'm going to study a lot of kanji, because I feel like kanji is the gateway to the rest of the language. I think that as soon as you can start reading, you open up so many more doors. It really just helps you immerse yourself in the language. And so I plan on taking the first 2 weeks before I even start class and just re-going over every single kanji I've learned, and also pushing myself like a little bit further than that, just so I can really help me get back into it, because it's been a year since I was in KCP.
I was wondering if any of you guys had any recommendations about maybe the hardest thing that KCP kind of threw at you, and how to work on being ready for it.
Sakabu.
What is Sakabu?
Well, it's like timed essays.
The
goal is, of course, to fill out at least one sheet. And
These are big sheets.
like 4,400 character sheets sort of things. And
Oh man.
45
you
minutes.
have 45 minutes and you're expected to use the grammar that you've learned and vocabulary and things like that.
No dictionary.
Yeah, no dictionaries.
No dictionaries, yeah. So you got to be on top of that and know what you're getting into. The topics can be really obscure or wonky or off the wall.
What was it? One, like, if you were a god, what would you do?
Yeah, or no, it's like if you could be, it wasn't necessarily like if you were a god, it was like if you could be something or have some sort
I
of,
remember, yeah.
yeah, it was some weird off the wall, like just existential question.
I think my friend told me about that one. She wrote about being a whale, I think.
Yeah, or it was like if you could be anything, something like that. And so it's being ready for that, because we don't get a lot of those like timed writes. Like I remember doing timed writes in junior high school and elementary school, but in English.
Yeah.
And so doing Japanese was an entirely different thing, and realizing that some of the stuff that you're learning, especially if you're doing a major over here or any sort of classes over here, you might be learning like informal stuff.
Yeah.
And that's not something that you should be using in the writing. Realizing those things are definitely a really big one.
Gotcha.
What's the most exciting part about KCP?
Being able to use it.
What?
Being able to use the language. Part of the immersion process is like suddenly everything makes sense. You know how hard it is to count things? You actually can use it in poetry. And like coming to realize like, oh, this is actually useful and I can survive on my own with whatever.
Counters are useful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would kind of mirror that in that you're in Japan. That's the most exciting thing about it, is you're there and you're immersed in the culture, and you get to try it out every day. You're required, whether it's at school at KCP or whether you're out trying to just survive in the world, you're using it every single day. And I think that was really just an amazing experience to be able to practice so much.
Yeah, like you've spent all this time and all this hard work learning the language, and then you can get out there and you can use it, you can utilize it, and you can actually use it in a setting where it's proper. Like it's so exhilarating to be able to speak to someone in their native language and have them understand you, and that communication, like, it went well. It's just so exciting. So I would say that's definitely one of the best things about it.
Another thing I really liked is that you'll learn words in the classroom, or like while you're on the train just going to class, and you get to use those new words just a few hours later, and you're always building up your vocabulary.
Or like even just being able to read the advertisements on the train.
Or understand the directions.
It's actually a really good study tool. Is like every day when I ride the train, I'm like, what does that say? And I tried to read all the posters in the train, all the advertisements.
Eavesdropping on the train is really useful just because it can be entertaining for one thing.
They don't expect you to know.
It's true. Yeah. Like I remember one time I was sitting on the train and a couple seats away, there was this couple talking about foreigners. Like, all they knew about foreigners and a little bit about the literature and French and stuff. And I was just sitting there laughing, but it's funny.
Yeah, eavesdropping is definitely a great listening exercise, but it also is hilarious. I remember one of my girlfriends and I, we were on our way to KCP, and we were standing, there was no room on the train, and there were these adorable, probably like 8-year-old Japanese kids who were just talking about us the entire time on the train ride, and it was like that awesome moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I understand them. I know what they're saying. I know they're talking about me, but then you don't want to react because, you want to kind of save face that way. But yeah, eavesdropping is a really, really good way to practice your ear and make sure that you're kind of keeping up with what native Japanese sounds like too, not just what it sounds like with your classmates who you're learning with, but what actual native speakers, what they use every day. So.
What was the most culturally shocking thing that happened to you, or that you had to get used to?
Getting pushed off a train, like, or shoved out. That was one that I noticed, is that people are not always
Or
necessarily
forcing your way on, like pushing their way into the train.
Yeah, either forcing your way in or getting pushed out. I think, it's crowded, you're in Tokyo, and that's kind of what happens when you're on trains, but definitely you're a foreigner.
Your
and
personal
so-
space disappears very quickly. So just be prepared to have like other bodies crammed into you and like touching you. I mean, obviously not when you're walking down the street, but I mean, that's definitely one experience in the train, is you have to learn to lose your personal bubble. Yeah. This is a practice for the train.
So everyone big smiles on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
So get rid of the personal bubble. I did it.